Hey, everybody, you're listening to Business Lunch, a podcast hosted by three guys who are currently pretty sick and stuffed up. For anyone who wants to not think about work while thinking about work. That makes even less sense when you're sick. We discuss some of the biggest issues facing the wide world of business management today. Also, we talk about lunch. This is episode 8, so welcome. We're titling this episode, Your Software is Your Culture. And in this episode, we're going to explore the idea that for better or for worse, the software your organization uses can define your culture. That's an interesting idea and one that we're going to throw around a little bit and hopefully give you some advice on how to use the right software so that you can have the right culture. So I want to open up by asking Will and Jim a little bit about culture. So let's talk about organizational culture. If you had to say, what kind of culture would you say most organizations want? What characteristics define a good working culture?
All right. So what defines a good working culture? I'd say, trust, openness, clarity.
Yeah.
Trust between people, openness between employees,
customers.
Yeah.
If you can even get that far, that's even better.
Yeah, I think you have to have, trust being the foundation, I think, in a culture is because, there's good days and bad days, right? You want to be able to have spirited conversation about things and have that level of trust that no matter what's said, it's understood that it's said in a context of getting better, not making things worse. And so that trust is huge. So Will, right on that to me.
Now, a culture is also made up of individuals. So let's talk about this question on the individual level. As an employee of company X, what do I need to promote a good working culture? What must my role have attached to it? Or how do I have to be able to do my job in a way that I feel like I'm contributing to a good culture?
Part of it, I think almost even kind of goes a little bit before that is, the first step is making sure you have the right people for the right culture. So that's one of the first things. And, always want to have people that are always going to make your company better. And so hopefully that step has already been completed and we have that person who's part of your culture and that person wants to contribute and how to do that. And it's really just, what are the types of things that this person can do is, are that person able to communicate? Does that person have the tools that they need? Can that person ask questions? Can that person, have all the information they need to have in order to do their jobs to be able to assist other people?
So there are two aspects to this. And one is hiring people that have the ability to communicate. But I want to flip that because this is really about software. And I think that it's possible for a person who is very well qualified and well skilled to not have clarity on what their own position is. And so you can be as good as anybody, but if you don't know what it is you're supposed to be doing or who's attached to the project you're working on and what their roles are, then it's going to be very difficult to communicate.
Yeah, it's about understanding the organization's culture, their beliefs, values, and then understanding your job. And so there's got to be some visibility in understanding what you have to do and how that affects the rest of the organization and clients and those things. So having the visibility and hoping that software is part of that is key to doing that. And just to, I get, Will, where you're coming from in terms of, you're hiring the right people. But first, you got to define what your culture is.
Without a doubt.
Right, yeah. And so
that's why you need to know, do they fit that
culture? Do they fit that culture, right? And so defining that is about, for me, again, trust, visibility, all the things that you'd want them to do. Having them to, every day we make decisions and your employees, your staff are going to have to make decisions. And what are they going to make that decision based on? Based on culture, based on your beliefs, based on all those things. So all those things for me make up the culture with, I think, the topic is software, with software bringing that all together. If you have a complete system where you house all the information you need about a customer, a client, even employees, your job descriptions, what's supposed to, all that good stuff.
Expectations,
yes,
results.
It's going to make up a good culture when that visibility is clear to everyone and accessible by everyone all the time. That helps build a good culture, I think.
That's good. So, accessibility of information, sharing of data, things like scheduling, right? Not wasting time trying to track somebody down, in addition to not wasting time tracking some piece of paper down.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, good. So let's get into some specifics here. I want to give an example of one way software can create culture for the better, and an example of one way it can make culture worse. And I'm sure we've seen things like this before. So let's start with the better. Let's run through an example. How can a software product improve the culture of an organization?
Well, I think we talked about a little bit already. Maybe we touched it. The visibility. I think productivity, visibility.
So let's go from those kind of general things, and then let's give an example of that. Let's do productivity. What's an example of how software can increase productivity?
I mean, simplest thing, everyone here has been sick for the past week and a half, pretty much at one point or another. I'm not coming into work when I'm sick, so I'm going to have everything I need to do while I'm at home. And in situations where I'm not necessarily working, but I know things came up. I had things planned on Monday when I was out. I was able to still do those few things that I needed to get done because I had the software to do it. So, that is great because, it allows me to still accomplish what I need to accomplish. And I still, fulfill my roles and my expectations because of it. While at the same time, I'm allowed to rest and recuperate and come back strong. Maybe not my voice, but the rest of it is here.
Right. And the flip side to that is Will's out. I'm doing some work that would normally go to Will, right? But you know what? Will knows it.
Yeah.
Because he can see it in the system. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So he has the visibility to go, oh, wow, cool. Jim, took care of that and emailed that prospect or client or whatever it is for me. And I don't need to get to that right now. So that's the kind of collab that can happen, with software and visibility.
And if you couldn't see that, you'd have absolutely no idea what Will did. You'd either end up doing some of the work that Will has already done, or you wouldn't know that, say, Will had done nothing, and you wouldn't know that. You'd be trying to track him down, but he's out.
Exactly. Or we both email the client. The client's like, "Don't these guys talk to one another?"
Right.
And then the client finds out that we sit next to each other. And they're really upset. These guys sit next to each other and they're not talking to one another. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's just one way.
And it's also great because, one of the things I do, not to get into specifics too much, is I go through and I update, these opportunities for these prospects with additional information that comes in over time. And I just feel so happy and joyful when I go to make these updates and I see that there's already history, there's already a log. I already know exactly what was said, where it happened. And I don't even feel the need to have to check. I just happen to see it because it's great that I know it's getting done.
So then now you're building a culture, right?
Yes.
He's happy that I've done some work for him. I'm happy he's doing some of the work too, even though he's sick and from home, and everything's getting done. And now we're building a team structure, right? So a culture can start small and build and grow throughout an organization.
Right. And I think what's really important about all of this is it's all done essentially through a software system. So it's fun. You guys sit right next to each other, but the implication of that shouldn't have to be that you are talking all day long about what each other's working on, right? If you're doing that, then you're not going to be very productive. You're going to be wasting your time just trying to get on the same page with each other. Right. But if Will can look at what Jim's got and what he's worked on in the system, and he can pull it up and look at it in 2 seconds, he doesn't have to ask you that question, and then you've got to explain yourself when you're probably busy working on something else anyway.
Yep. Yep.
And that's what we really mean when we say software can help create the culture, right? It makes some of these conversations unnecessary, so that when you do need to have a conversation, you're focused on what was really necessary for collaboration in the moment. Everything else gets logged, tracked, and is visible in the system.
Yeah, I think, it's funny because you talk about culture, you talk about the one thing every company probably wants in a culture is teamwork. You want your team to work well together, right? And there you go. Software can help do that and pull a team together with that with visibility. So.
Right. Okay. Well, let's pretend then that I manage an organization. Okay. I've been listening to this and I'm convinced it's true. Software can really improve or not improve a culture. So in my organization, I suspect that my working culture is being hindered or sabotaged in some way by my software. How do I audit that to find the problem?
I would probably go with that, assuming that you have a culture that, you've been trying to get to. I think one of the things is to just be open with your employees, letting them know you feel that there is an issue and trying to get their feedback. And if you're even in situations where, let's say that there isn't that necessary trust aspects of it too, I think anonymous surveys are even a good way to start and to try to at least know where you're starting at. So once you know where you're starting at, what your problems are, and you know where you need to go, the next step is just building that road. Start it, but you need to know your starting point. You need to know where your faults are. You need to know your problems, and the best way to do that is get feedback from your employees in a way that you can trust their feedback. And in a way, sometimes I almost feel anonymity helps with that, because people aren't afraid of repercussions when it's anonymous at times.
And I imagine the questions you'd be asking if you suspected that your software was the problem would be about the way that your employees use their software. And it's interesting, right? Because if you manage a company that has 5 or 6 different software products, you've just set up a challenge for yourself, because now you're not sure which software products are talking to which other ones. You may be dealing with situations where you have different managers on different software products, and only they know the product truly well, and not everyone in your company uses the same product. So if you're trying to kind of audit for an issue with your software, let's not assume that you're just working with a single software.
I mean, it's funny because it's not just the different softwares, right? It is people, right? So if you think about it, accountants are different people than salespeople, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have an accounting department, they look at things that are very in a logical, way, right? Everything's dress. They need all that, and salespeople are quite the opposite. They just sell. They don't even like to put paperwork in at the end of the day, unless they get a paycheck from it, right? Unless they're getting a commission or something like that. So you're dealing with 2 different types of people looking for 2 different types of information, different ways. And one way to solidify that is through software, right? Connecting those softwares and make sure they're together. Accounting can get the information they need from a CRM, and the CRM guys can look at their financials through an ERP or multi-connected system somehow and be able to look at that. So for me, it's these people too that think differently, and software can bring all that together to kind of bridge that gap amongst the different personalities that come into it.
I think that's a great point. And you're always going to have different personalities, and personality can be can slow you down, but it doesn't have to. And I think that's really interesting. And so that maybe leads me to the last question before we get into our food bit. I didn't even talk about what we were going to say with food today. I want to just kind of leave that as a surprise. There are a million business software products out there. How do I find one that can improve the culture of my organization rather than cause more problems?
Yeah, understand the issues, right? I think Will hit it before, is really try to figure out, where your problems are with your organization, and then have your goal, right? Paint the perfect picture of what, your culture and your organization looks like. look at what it is today, and then paint that picture, and then actually drive that path to where you want it to be. And you're right. I mean, there's a ton of software out there that can help consolidate and do things, and that's just about digging in and finding out which features match, kind of your business. Because I mean, let's take an ERP for example. There are 1,000 different flavors of it, and some have are stronger in some areas and
Some
weaker
are
in others,
weakest.
right? So it's just making sure you find that match, and that's just going to take some research and knowing where you want to get, and then finding that piece of software that can help your organization get there.
And I think there are two other things that people need to consider when trying to choose the software and understand the whole process. One is that, improving your processes are going to be an iterative approach. You're not going to get from A to Z overnight. It's not going to be one necessary change. Think about that path, and there's going to be many steps along the road, and understand that it's everything you do is a goal to work towards the front. And then the other piece of that too is never try to fall into the pit of, but we've always done it that way.
Yeah.
Understand, when you're reviewing what you're currently doing, of why you're doing that way. And when you're trying to, get your idea of what your end goal is, don't let that be what the most common roadblock is. Oh, but we do it this way, and the new software can't do it that way.
Yeah.
But the new software does it differently, and maybe you should consider that, because if it's the way you've always done it, that may not be always the best way, and that's probably why you're in the spot you're at right now.
And ask your people, like you said. I mean, if you're hiring, if you're constantly growing, you're constantly hiring and bringing in new people. These people have worked at other organizations that may have had a great culture and had good software that worked for them. So use your resources, which are your people, to get a leg up on trying to find the right software. They may have some good input on that.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, thanks, guys. Before we go, this is called Business Lunch. So culture is a shared experience. I think that's something we've made clear today. So here's my food question for you. What's your favorite food to share with someone else? And you have to say why.
I mean, I almost want to, Jim, are you with me? I don't like to share my favorite food. That's why it's my favorite.
True.
But it's not, you're misunderstanding the question. It's not what is your favorite food? It's what is your favorite food to share. So first you think about the food that you like to share, and then which is your favorite of those.
I got you.
That's how you answer that.
That's an interesting question. My favorite food to share.
Got one.
You got one?
I have one, so if you need another minute to think.
It's almost like
You
these
take
guys
it.
didn't read the notes before we did this episode.
Yeah,
All right, now what I'm actually going to go with for this is garlic bread. I absolutely, hands down, love garlic bread. It's one of my favorite foods. And the reason I'm putting this as a food to share is, oftentimes when you get the loaves, while I probably can eat the entire loaf myself, I probably shouldn't.
Right.
So I like to share that with other people,
Right.
so I don't eat all of it myself. So selfish reasons is why I share it, but it's absolutely one of my favorite foods.
I'm going to say popcorn at the movies, because I think it's the experience of, similarly, I'm not going to eat a whole tub of popcorn, though I easily could. It's about having kind of that shared experience, and then being at the movie adds another element to
Absolutely.
it. So you kind of feel like you're getting that double experience there.
Yeah, that's a good one, because I shared my popcorn with you yesterday.
Yeah, you did. Mate, that might be why I thought about it.
Yeah.
I really
Shared my
appreciated that.
popcorn
We were
with
not at the
you.
movies. We were at work, and it wasn't quite
we
as
weren't at the
good.
movie.
But next time we'll do it at a movie.
I kind of got upset that I didn't get any popcorn.
Yeah,
but
you
that's
get
another
any
argument.
popcorn. Yeah, you don't get any. I'm going to go back to one of the, I guess, in the beginning when we talked about our favorite foods. I think way back in episode 1. Now it seems like a long time ago, and we're only at what?
Saga
episode
begins.
9? Right, 8 or 9. I'm going to go back to ribs because I enjoy the process of getting them all ready and cooking them, and I always love to share them with some. I don't just want to eat them myself. I cook them for other people. And so that's what I love to do. I love to prepare them, take the time, marinate them, build my own rub, and then at the end be able to share that with people. And so while it may seem like a little weird share, but that's the one. I love to cook them, prepare them, and share.
Well, I'm hungry now, and if you're not hungry out there in our audience, then you're probably doing something wrong. So thanks, everybody, for listening. I want to remind you to please subscribe to our channel, like our episodes. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, YouTube, basically wherever you find your podcasts. Find us if you haven't already. Listen to us, and we'll see you next time.